And you can go in there and say, I'm scum, I'm trash, I'm this, I'm that. But if you're just spamming every article 100 things and trying to take it over and saying I'm a murderer and stuff or whatever, you know, they just erase it because it's a distraction. Go do it somewhere else. In fact, I kind of like people attacking me on other people's websites and YouTube and stuff because that people then wonder who we are and come find us. It's just that I want real discussion going on the sites. But we've had the Secret Service here twice. We've had the FBI here. We've had the ATF here over the years, okay? All over comments and stuff in the forums and on the comments. And let me tell you, that's when you go from just having your webmasters kind of policing stuff to actually having to hire people to deal with it. Because when they show up with a subpoena, you know, for the IP addresses of this commenter and that commenter, and then they get the subpoena says you can't tell anybody why they were here. And then you got to go on air and say the FBI was here, but the court order says I can't tell you. And everybody's like, oh, that's just hype. The FBI wasn't at his office. And then 6 months later, you hear about the arrest on the news and website Infowars.com and FBI subpoenas. Look, we're not making any of that. In fact, people that said it wasn't true, you notice it came out later. Everybody always says somebody needs to go arrest the globalists. Somebody needs to go put a hole in them. I'm not calling for that. And I always notice, though, it's people, and I'm not saying you're bad, sir, but listen, it's always somebody else needs to do it. Either I'm going to cause violence, like Nightline says, and the Southern Poverty Law Center and CNBC and MSNBC, or I'm not violent enough. Here's the deal. We're identifying who's taken this country over and how they did it. And these are criminals who deserve to be arrested, deserve to be given trials, deserve to be dealt with. Historically, a military coup generally turns into something even worse overnight. We've already had a globalist coup. You've got to go after the criminal banksters, puppets like Obama and people. I mean, if we had a good president, he could direct for people to be arrested. National security. I mean, if we had a real FBI and real CIA, that's what would be going on. But they're all scared. I mean, look, they don't let the average FBI agent go after anything but what they're told. There are a lot of good people in the FBI. I've talked to them over the years off record. I've run into them. I've had them on the show who are retired. In fact, I'd say most of the FBI are good men and women. They're just busy dealing with bank robberies, kidnapped kids, child porn, stuff like that at low level. They're not allowed to touch the middle or the upper level. It's the same thing by and large for things, even things like the CIA. They're just busy, you know, analyzing things, doing stuff like that. It's the special cowboy operators and those above them. It's very small groups, but at the top, they're doing all this. So let me do you a favor and just give you a news flash here. This is a big show. 15 intelligence agencies listen to it, at least. You need to understand that people can talk like this on little radio shows, but you don't want to do that here or on my websites, okay? Because the eye of Sauron is looking right at this operation. You need to be made aware of that, okay? What you say here is in front of millions of people and tens of thousands of people inside the government, most of which agree with you, but the point is they're going to get an order to come after you. So we do you a favor, buddy, because I haven't seen those comments you're talking about, that if we see calls for violence or whatever, we erase it, we ban your account or wherever we've registered, we kick you off. Because we cannot sit there and let Infowars.com and Prisonplanet.com be used for vehicles to call for killing people. Look at Hatari Militia. They had a good judge, so the judge acquitted him after 2.5 years in prison. What did the FBI have? Hatari Militia talking about having to defend themselves during a total collapse from a corrupt government. Well, that's constitutional. I've sat here and said basically what they've said, that we need to get ready to defend ourselves. We can't go to FEMA camps. I'm not looking forward to that. I don't like even having to talk like that, but it's my right, my duty. I have to do it. I have a responsibility to tell you to get prepared to defend yourself. But it's not just this, somebody ought to go and do something. No, 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 no. Those that shoot first, they lose. Use the info war. Work hard while the sun shines to warn and awaken people. The pen is mightier than the sword. We fail if we have to go to the sword. Now, I'm about to go to break, sir, but now do you understand why your comments are being erased, calling for someone to kill the president?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me, or am I
yes,
still on hold?
No, I can hear you. Go ahead.
No, and I have to, and thank you for giving me a minute to cool down, Alex. And yes, I must say, and this may sound somewhat contradictory, I totally understand and very much appreciate, sir, you keeping the forum level-headed, and I understand that it is very, very important to stay away from violence or talk of violence or threats of violence. Yes, sir, I very much understand.
Okay, great. I hear you. I got to go. I got to go to break. But it's not just that. The thing's already an out-of-control free-for-all. We just can't have swinging from the chandeliers, talking about killing people, okay? Don't worry. Those of you that want it, it's probably coming, and it's not going to be fun. I had tried everything. I'd cut. I'm going to continue with your calls ahead of more news. But just to lay out some more basic knowledge to new listeners, and all of this is self-evident. You already knew it. I'm just pointing it out. The global social engineers are in control because they have a will to power. They crave it. They're control freaks, and they're very smart. And they know human nature. They know, as the Romans knew 2,000 years ago, to get a large part of the population on the dole. The Romans handed out coinage and free bread to the poor who weren't slaves, to get them to become dependent. Just like feeding animals at the park or something makes them dependent on humans. They want to make you dependent on the state. It's an elementary statement. I know you already know that, but think about it. 51% of this country is surviving on a government check because the government, in a lot of cases, took their money for decades and now gives them a pittance back. But the point is, nevertheless, they're now dependent on it. They're now dependent on it. That's why they're going ahead with all this, because they've gotten us so addicted to them, and they've gotten us so conditioned to live on the plantation, the reservation, that the pension funds and the whole system is wired into it so they can hold society hostage and say, now we're going to sign your government on to 1,500 trillion. That's what the global debt is, 644 trillion. The Washington Post says is our debt. Our real debt's 15 trillion. Theirs is 600 plus trillion. But they're saying, oh, these are the banks that are the custodians of everything. You better prop us up or everything goes under. But it's impossible. Well, they know it's impossible. It was designed to be impossible. It's designed to destroy everything. It's designed to render you down to totally poor. This is the model, because when you're totally poor, they can make you dependent and totally control you. It is elementary. So people talk about, oh, somebody needs to, impeach Obama. That's good because it would send a message that their puppets aren't invincible. But then you say, oh, somebody needs to, get rid of him. That would be the best thing for the New World Order. Would turn him into a martyr, all of his programs. If you're not for government health care, you're a president killer. We need to pray for Obama that he be hit by a spiritual bolt of lightning like Saul of Tarsus on the road to Damascus and wake up from his evil. But I wish no physical harm to him. And I pray for his protection because he's a teleprompter reading Harvard con man lawyer, just like all the rest of these people, just like Mitt Romney. So again, the idea that the buck stops with them, the real power structure doesn't want you to know they have power. Rockefellers, Rothschilds, and others. They don't want you to know. They spend all their time telling you how unpowerful they are. Same thing with the Queen of England. Same thing with the Queen of the Netherlands. They don't want you to know that they've got the power. They want you to worry about their prime ministers and presidents. So that's another reason it's a bad idea. See, just having a civil war and picking the first government person and shooting them, that's really easy to do. And that will run them to ground, hide behind their government buildings. And then the society, because they're going to turn the power off and a bunch of other stuff, is going to get into turmoil. The checks aren't going to arrive. There's going to be riots up and down the road with all the giant dependent people. There's going to be huge shootouts with those in the suburbs and rural areas defending themselves. And the globalists will just sit back while the U.S. is in a civil war. And then everybody's going to beg the big red one. Everybody's going to beg the first cav right into their cities. In all the training manuals and all the higher level preparation, they're getting ready for a civil war in this country. We don't want that civil war to happen. You think the globalists care if 500,000 cops get killed? They can replace them like that. think they care if 1 million citizens get killed? Folks, they don't. In fact, it's not just that they don't care. They want this to happen. This is one of the plans they're looking at. But the globalists don't have total control yet. That's why we're on talk radio. That's why I was reading that military base, major newspaper. I had a copy of it. Guys, you put a PDF on screen that's distributed hundreds of thousands of copies in Southern California. And the whole thing is Obama's a dictator. The UN's taking over America. The president's legalizing the illegals. This is treason. I mean, they are a few degrees away from fully waking up to, hey, it's not just Obama. It's the mega banks that have hijacked America. And the minute that last lesson is learned, it's game over. So the globalists are racing to go to drones and autonomous ground robots. This is MIT 15 years ago, 10 years ago. That's how I knew all this would happen. Folks, they're going to have combat robots on every street corner. Soon they're going to be able to make them and deliver them for a few $100,000. Then they're going to get even cheaper. Every year they're going to get cheaper until they're $20,000, $30,000 for a combat robot, ladies and gentlemen. You're like, that's Star Wars. Folks, it's 2012. They've got our tax money. They're mad scientists. Look out. They're going to replace the military and police.
We're on the march. The empire's on the run.
It is a mathematical certainty, according to every economist we've interviewed, who's accurately charted what's happening, that we will completely collapse, and that hundreds of times, it's over 200 roughly, all the wealth in the world could be fed into the derivatives, counterfeit, fraud instruments that make Bernie Madoff look like a saint. The bankers have created this. They've set up a world government. I mean, we knew it was the bankers doing it because decades ago they were the ones always financing NAFTA, GATT, world government, always giving themselves the power, bragging in books they wrote. David Rockefeller, Helmut Schmidt, Ted Turner. I mean, they think you don't read books because I guess, you know, they put a book out, maybe 50,000 copies get sold. All that read it are other globalist and then minion level people who literally read the books. They can go to a cocktail party for grants that David Rockefeller's at. This is how this works. And say, hi, I'm the chair of this university. Mr. Rockefeller, I'm very familiar with your work in the OSS from the time you were 19 through to today and setting up all these different groups. I would like to be able to someday work with one of your foundations, sir. And literally just to impress them. These social climbers go and study all this just so they can sound smart and put on the best act. And David Rockefeller, well, my dear, literally, these are true stories I've been told and read about. We actually do need some help locally with a operation we're doing, trying to get the community to accept what we're trying to do. Let me give you to such and such, and they'll brief you. And then if they do good on that project for free as a lobbyist consultant, this is how it works. This is one way it works. Then you get promoted up. And it's all about, can you lie? Can you con? Can you deceive? Will you do anything? And it's over. I don't want to get into a whole story about it. But in fact, I'm not even going to go there. I'm not even going to get into it. Maybe someday I can tell you a story about it. The point is, this is how the real world works. And they write all these books about what they're going to do. And how they're, I mean, I remember in the 30s and 40s, Bertrand Russell